Today, I'm excited because today we're going to talk about consciousness. And what is the idea of consciousness? What is this thing we call divine mind that is in through all things, that can be omnipresent, meaning that it's everywhere at the same time and that knows all things? And so in this, we call this thing consciousness, divine mind, which in Western culture, I know that we call this God or God. And so today we're going to actually talk about the individual expression of God, which is us, which is the mankind, meaning one man or man. And so in this, we're going to unpack what is that individualized expression called consciousness, which basically breaks down to your beliefs, thoughts, attitudes, your values, actions, and words. And those combined are what we equate, or the totality of that is what we call consciousness. And so we're going to talk about the 4 levels of consciousness, how we have the mortal man, which is basic man. Then we come into the metaphysician, and this is the man that becomes more awake, realizing that there's more to life. Then we come into the 3rd phase, which is the mystic. And now the mystic 3rd stage of consciousness is the person that can actively co-create, go out and literally, deliberately co-create an experience that they desire to have. And now we have the last one, which is the master. Now the master is what we consider the Christ, the Buddha, any human being that's even Mother Teresa, the Oprah Winfrey's, Deepak Chopra, Wayne Dyer, T.D. Jakes, any of these human beings, whether they be in a traditional religious sect or they're in a spiritual vein, that they're all in this elevated state of consciousness. Now, whenever we're in this state of consciousness, though, remember we go in and out of these stages. So primarily, most of us are going to be in the stage 2 or 3. And stage 2 or 3 doesn't mean that you've become or made it, or even the level of master, because we've all had glimpses of being our elevated or our most highest self. And a lot of times I equate this with athletes. A lot of times whenever you're performing or you're actually out there in the game and you do a move or you react and you see things in a slow motion, or your body you have this out of body experience, that is what you call that you're in your highest elevated state, which is your 4th level of consciousness. All right. So let's rewind. Let's go back to stage 1. Stage 1 is victim mentality. Now in victim mentality, this is a mentality where everything just happening to me. This is where superstition and bad luck is primarily ruling your life, where anything that happens, we equate it to it was just bad luck, or it was the past, or it was my parents, or it was all these external influences are the reason why I am who I am today. It takes no ownership. It's also the survival man, like the man that's always clawing just to be alive, just to breathe, that they're always in survival mode. They're always thinking in terms of lack. And their thought system is more like, why is this happening to me? Why do that other person have good luck and I have bad luck? That is victim mentality, right? And so in this, when you're in stage 1, moving into stage 2, it is important that we do not unconsciously blame ourselves, because it is easy for our mind to start going down that negative path of blaming ourselves unconsciously, or guilt or condemnation. This is also the opportunity for you or this person to let go of shame, blame, and guilt from themselves and from every single person that has done them wrong. All right. So now let's move forward to stage 2. Stage 2 is the metaphysician. And so the metaphysician comes into this awareness. This is a time where I begin to look at the world at a bigger lens. I begin to realize there's a power greater than myself that is orchestrating all these things, that there's a power in the world that literally creates worlds, universes at a macro level and a micro level, meaning within the body at the smallest level. And so while we're in this stage, the thought process is more a lot like I can influence my life. that I may not know how, I may not know all the techniques, but I'm going to learn how to develop myself. I'm going to learn how to think better. I'm going to take more actions in the way I talk to people. I'm going to take more responsibility and anything that I did wrong, and I'm going to try to make this right. This is the time where we begin to grow, expand, and unfold. We also begin to use tools, spiritual tools like affirmations. Even though I feel one way, I'm going to deliberately think another. I'm going to use these verbal affirmative statements that this is who I am today, even though the feeling may not be there. That I'm going to do this because I know eventually that my thought process will end this way. This is when we start using visualization, when we start sitting, clearing our minds, and allowing a power greater than ourselves, spirit, to come through us and give us visions or images that unfold at a higher level. Now, visualization and using your imagination are two different things. Imagination is something that generally we engage in. Like, I can imagine myself speaking to you on camera before I started to speak to you. But a visualization is more you're receiving it from, you're downloading it, and it's coming in image form. Then we start using things like vision boards and manifestation boards. These are things that we literally use images. Pinterest is an app that kind of gives you an example of dream weddings or dream ideas that you want and desire, which later you'll understand that it helps impress upon the subconscious mind, which your subconscious mind, literally, it's a silent worker. It's always working, trying to create that which is impressed upon it mostly. Okay? And this is also the opportunity to give up power and control. So next, when we're moving into level 3 of consciousness, this is an opportunity for me to also realize that there's a power at work that is still greater than I am, because the snare or the trap can be is that I am now powerful. I am God. I am creating all this. It is good that you remember that you're co-creating, that you're not the creator. You are, in a sense, a creative person, but you're not the creator. Okay? So stage 3, which is the mystic, okay? This is the person that, again, these are the people in the world that are they seem to be able to always have good luck. They seem to always be able to be one step ahead. They understand certain discernible laws about the mind, about the body, about consciousness, about how the universe works, how different seasons, and even if they didn't know it intentionally, somewhere along the line, they're operating in harmony with God's laws. And in a different segment, we'll talk about God's laws, or we'll talk about divine law, universal laws, in more depth. But there are these metaphysical laws, whether it be in science or in spirituality, that coexist with us. And so in this mystic phase of your growth of consciousness, you become more of the vehicle. You understand that this is God using me, that I am free. I go with the flow. You know, this is a time where it's like I can see things neutral. All situations and circumstances are neutral. I understand that it's up to the way I perceive this situation on how I deem it, whether good or what we call bad, whether I consider it agreeable or disagreeable. How a tone or someone may speak at me in a way I disagree with or dislike, but I don't have to react. This is a time where I create the space in my thoughts and attitudes. And so I have this awareness of these thoughts going in and out my mind, though I don't have to identify with them, then later reacting to them. So this is also the opportunity to really dive into meditation. This is a time to really dive into openness and teachableness, or in even teaching other people. Okay, this is a time where you literally are very deliberate in your speech or your speaking. You're very deliberate into listening and not speaking back. You're just very deliberate and intentional in all of your life, in all areas of your life. You'll start seeing that everything that you do is very intentional, that you don't just jokingly say things, because you understand the effects of it personally and to that other human being. You start understanding how powerful you truly are in this world. Okay, so the last thing, and I'll be quick, is stage 4, which is God is as me. So this is the part when you hear the master teacher Jesus says, the Father and I are one. So this is when we we realize that we cannot see ourselves separate from the whole. We realize it's just like if I was talking about my fingers in relationship to the body, that I understand that all of this is Sean. So when I talk about an individual, I understand, yes, I'm speaking about that individual. However, that individual is actually in relationship to the whole human race. And how that if it's just like also when Martin Luther King said that we're not free until all men are free, because he realized in that moment until every person is free, mankind is not free. And so just sit on that and really think about that. I mean, that's a really sometimes can be a very deep or a thing that you really want to wrap your mind around and realize that there is actually one race, the human race. And science has actually totally killed the idea of separate races. And that though our physical pigment of our skin and certain features are bigger, smaller, or of different proportions, there's actually one race, the human race. And so this is also the time where you experience oneness with nature, oneness with the planet. This is a time where your elevated sense of consciousness, you just are aware of life. And by your intention alone, your ability to choose then ripples a ripple effect in your life. This is also a time to continue to grow. While we're in this body, we will always continue to expand and grow and unfold. And this is why you take a person, again, like the Buddha or Jesus, and their ideas were from a different realm. They were from a different age. They were, 2,000 years later, 4,000, even with the Buddha, we're still talking about them. Why? Because they had this idea, and not only did they have these ideas, they embodied them. So when people saw them, they saw them as God-like, because they were an elevated sense of consciousness in that time period. And so as we as human beings begin to elevate our consciousness, yes, externally it looks like a person may be this amazing teacher, coach, leader, but what they don't see is inside was all the time they spent with the divine, learning, laboring in that secret place until what they're actually seeing is the fruit of that labor when they're just using their natural eyes. And so these are real quick, these are the 4 stages of consciousness. Number 1, the victim mentality, woe is me. Things are just happening to me. Stage 2 is that I can do it. It is now I'm engaging with the universe, myself, actually learning about myself, personal development, learning everything I possibly can. It's just knowledge, knowledge, knowledge. I'm a sponge. Let me just soak it all in. Now, stage 3 is I'm a vessel. I begin to realize that I am just here. I go with the flow. I'm understanding that things are really neutral, and it's really my interpretation of how I'm seeing these things, and my spiritual tools, I'm starting to really engage in them, because I start to realize it is more important, these intangible metaphysical or invisible powers are greater than the actual physical ones. Then in stage 4 is that I am a master of my situations. I'm a master on this planet, that, I become in heightened awareness of myself and others, and I begin to see myself as a whole, that there is no real just individual me. There is me, but it is me in relation to my family, to my workplace, to my environment, to everything around me. And so thank you. This has been great. Keep listening, because we got more to come in the future. And y'all